Hi everyone. I'm the director for Common Knowledge Trust, and I had COVID in March, and I have experienced lots of symptoms since then, and it is hard to tell whether I'm experiencing COVID symptoms or whether moving to another country and another weather and a bunch of different food is what I'm experiencing. However, from reading lots of posts, we have similar experiences. As I mentioned in our introductory video, um, being the director of the trust, our trust put out a protocol, which I'll post again, about what people can do as soon as they feel unwell. And what's important to understand is that we wrote that in order to fill in the gap that governments and health agencies were telling us if we felt unwell, which was to go home, self-isolate, don't overwhelm the health system, but go to the hospital if you're having trouble breathing. I personally felt that this would frighten people, certainly frightened me. It felt like go home, do nothing, and that wasn't okay. Our trust is common knowledge. We're trying to find skills that work across our genders, our religions, our cultures, our languages. And we're fortunate. We are all one humanity. We all blink, we all cough, and we can all tighten up our muscles. And when we have COVID, even though our symptoms are somewhat dissimilar, they basically have a lot in common, just variations on the theme. So when someone responded to the first video and said, but that protocol's for people early on and we're later down the road, why is that applicable? And we're going to go back again, and I'm speaking as the director for the trust now, is that our job is to help our body deal with this virus, just like we keep it cut clean. So when we first cut ourselves and we clean the cut the first time, we don't say to ourselves, well, that's the last time I'm going to clean it. We continue to clean it. And it's important that you continue to help your body deal with this virus. This virus is new to us. Our immune system and all the parts of us that we don't understand are trying to get rid of this virus. They can't shovel it out of us. It has to break it down. And when we break it down, nullify it, it throws off waste products. And it is helping our body get rid of those waste products. That's so important. So making an oral rehydration formula is really important, and to know how is important. So another question that came along is how much salt and how much sugar? And it is to taste. That's important to know. The water needs to be warm. You should be able to drink it. Gulp, 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 until your belly says, I've had enough. And it should be so that you don't taste too much sweet and you don't taste too much salt. Those of us who are in countries where we can get pink Himalayan salt, that doesn't have iodine in it. If you have white salt and it has iodine in it, then you're going to use that. If you use white sugar, that's fine. If you use molasses, that's fine. Don't use an artificial sugar. You want to use something that's sweet. Sweet and salty is what helps the fluid, the water, get into our cells. And it is within our cells where this virus has entered and multiplied, and where the work of our metabolism is going on. Now, once again, I intentionally 50 years ago chose not to have any medical training. Back then, in the medical profession, if we had something like diabetes or something like high blood pressure, the medical profession basically said, take these pills. The medical profession matured, and it began to realize that diet, exercise, and reducing stress were things that we could do for ourselves in order to help our own health. We have been told if we have a sore throat, gargle with warm salt water. If we have a tooth extracted, gargle with warm salt water. If we cut ourselves, keep it clean. So there is no conflict between the medical profession and using things for yourself to help yourself. In fact, at this time, the medical profession is delighted. That's why we wrote the protocol. You're not going to cure or eliminate the virus if you've gotten it. However, by starting very early on, helping our body, we might be able to reduce the viral load where the wound occurs, which is in the back of the nose, back of the throat, and we support our body by hydrating very well, by washing off very well, and by continuing to gargle and wash our nose out if we feel stuffed in our nose or sore in our throat. When you do the nose thing, you're not doing it like this. You're actually bending down to one side so that the water can go in one nose and out the other nostril. Okay? And then you'll feel like doing this. You can spit it out or swallow it. The virus doesn't do well in the acidity of our stomach. So we want you to continue to use these protocols along with other things that you're going to use. And why? Because what I've learned personally, so now I'm talking personally about this, is that I needed to work to reduce the intensity of the episodes that I had. I needed to shorten those episodes, and I needed to create space in between. Life is not a flat line. Life is always modulating. We feel happy sometimes, we feel a little bit sad, we feel energetic, we feel a little bit down, our nose is stuffed sometimes, our nose is clear. All sorts of things modulate in us. But now that COVID has come around, one of the things that I've noticed is that people are hyperly sensitive aware of their bodies, where many of us weren't beforehand. Many of us would treat our body as though it was just a thing, and if we got sick, we would wait, and then we'd go to the hospital or the doctor and hope they'd give us something to fix the problem. However, they don't know how to fix this problem. So our trust says, and I say as the director of the trust, every little bit helps. That's what we want to do. So for me individually, and speaking for myself, I took a look at the symptoms that I had when I had COVID, and they were more acute. And now that I am in post-COVID, they are more chronic. They are still episodes. Often we have a confusion as to which ones am I paying attention to, right? So I have a sore throat, and I have stuffed nose, and I have fatigue, and I have cough, and my fingers are red here, and I'm developing varicose veins, and name it. I have palpitations, I have trouble breathing. What am I paying attention to? And what you need to do is to write them down. Just begin to follow them for a while. Write down what you're actually experiencing. And I don't mean journaling. I just mean make a list. And for the next 2 or 3 days, just notice, when does your nose feel stuffed? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it in the evening? When you lie down? And then ask yourself, did I used to get a stuffed nose? Because many of us don't have a pre-COVID memory very much. Everything seems to be related to COVID. The other thing that you want to do is to say, when I have a stuffed nose, I notice I get a headache. So tie those two together. Or, when I get a stuffed nose, I don't have any other symptom, and I only get it in the morning. And by noon, it's gone. So mark that. The fatigue. Notice, does the fatigue come on very quickly? Does it come on after you've done something? How long does it last? What do you do? What happens after the episode? How is it different now than it was when you were in the acute phase? So you're learning more and more about yourself, just as I learned about myself. I still get terrible fatigue. However, I also used to get fatigue, terrible fatigue beforehand. So it's very challenging to know whether the fatigue I have now is a post-COVID symptom or it's related to my genetic metabolic disorder. Very hard to know. If I don't metabolize B vitamins, which are the stress hormones, then it's hard for me to tell. COVID is a virus. We have viruses in our body. A lot of our cells are made up of viruses or bacteria or yeast. Our whole gut health is all about yeasts and bacteria, right? But this virus is new, which means we don't have a friendship with it. And when I say that, people will go, what do you mean, not a friendship with it? Well, when we have other viruses that we get sick from and we're familiar with it, we have a relationship to it. And if we treat ourselves well and treat our bodies well, we may not like it, but in some ways we have a relationship to it, a friendship to it. Because if we look at it as an enemy, we're looking at our bodies as an enemy. We don't want to do that. We want to look at our bodies and our mind in a friendship manner and work together, even around these viruses. So because this is new, our virus is challenging our immune system. I don't know the names of all our immune functions. I chose not to be medical. It just is causing our immune system to do all sorts of things. At first, people thought that this was a respiratory disorder. Now they know that it's a blood vessel disease. Some people are left with white webs of material in their lungs. Some are left with micro blood clots. It weakens the connective tissue of our cardiovascular system. It's a blood vessel disorder. So we need to work with often those episodes that are related to that. And over the subsequent, when I do more videos, I'm going to share thoughts and comments about some of the specific issues that I'm reading in the forums that people have. And all I can do is bring you my experience or the skills that I have as a naturopath or that I have as a person. And to just encourage you to bring your skills forward and to be very specific. If someone says to me, in my practice as a naturopath, I have headaches all the time, that's not accurate. That's a generalization. Or I'm tired all the time. That's a generalization. When you have redness on those fingers, you didn't have it at some point, and hopefully at some point they won't be there. So that episode is going to maybe last for weeks. That can be true as well. But most people that have episodes, those episodes are in fluctuation. What you want to do is to find out how intense is that episode. So on your piece of paper, you're going to say, when I have headaches, or when I have fatigue, or when I have pain in my legs, or when I have oppressed breathing, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being a lot, and sometimes 10 can be good or bad. You have to decide that for yourself. Mark that. And also, if you have an episode like a headache or fatigue, mark how long it is. So you know what you're dealing with. And then we together can know how to decrease the episode, shorten the length of it, and have space in between. Now, a lot of people I work with don't recognize the space in between, because that person who has a headache all the time actually doesn't have a headache all the time. They have an intense headache for X amount of time, and then it becomes less intense and maybe dull, maybe goes away, but only for a short period of time. And most people don't even recognize that short period of time. So when I'm with somebody who uses generalizations and we do something to try to help that episode, either reduce in intensity, shorten in length, or create more space in between, I will ask them this question after we've done something. Do you feel better? To which they go, no, I'm still having my headaches. To which I ask, do you feel 0.0000000000000, and then I wait till they laugh and add a 1. Then they know that they are better, even if it's that tiny amount. If we don't acknowledge that tiny amount of improvement, it's very hard for us to grow it, because we are stuck in paying attention to the episodes. All of us are at different points in this COVID journey of ours. It took me a lot to decide to be this public. If you have questions on the sites where these videos are being shown, ask your questions. If you're not comfortable with what I'm saying, please just ignore it. Too often we're using social media to degrade one another and to be critical and to be harsh. The word social is the operative word. We want to be kind to each other. We want to be caring. We want to clarify and ask questions and understand together and individually. That's what's important in this journey. We are the new ones. We are the ones that are experiencing these symptoms first. A few months ago, we weren't even really recognized. So we have an individual and collective obligation to find out what are those little things that help. Every little bit helps. So I decided in my job as the Director of Common Knowledge Trust, and that we house all the birthing better skills that fathers and mothers developed in the 70s, that I had to come out of 25 years of basically retirement because pregnant women were being told your husband or your doula can't come with you to the birth in the hospital. And since our trust has advocated since the 70s the growing of a skilled birthing population for all births, I knew that I had to come out and start to talk about growing a skilled birthing population, and our trust put out a COVID quick birth skills online course. And then I got COVID, and I'm dealing with it. And it took me a long time to have the courage to join any of these groups because I know how social media is being used, and I find it depressing. And yet I'm very, very determined to share with you what I know because every little bit helps. And I encourage you to share as well. If what works for you doesn't work for someone else, that's okay. The more specific you can be about what you're doing, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, how long you're doing it, when did you see results, how did you know that doing X was creating less intense episodes, shorter episodes, and more health in between, the better someone else who reads or sees that can help themselves. Everybody has to work together in this. As I said in a comment that was made, we are no longer in either medical or natural. It's not either or. We are now in the time of and. If you use medical care, use it. And when you're using self-help, use it alongside together and help your medical practitioner understand what you're doing for yourself. Or we can call it this and that. We're using this and we're using that. And we're using this and that and this and that. This is good. We need to come together so that we can help all of us who are going to be dealing with this for a very, very long time. So thank you very much. Please ask questions. That helps me know what to talk about next or how to respond. Thank you very much for letting me post these videos. Bye-bye.